Thomas, if you want to jump over there, take a look. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2. I'm going to say something. You're right, I'm hearing like something going on back. You didn't hear yourself? Alright, well, let's put you on a different channel. Second? I think that's why. Sorry now. You don't hear John. You don't hear John or.
From either of you.
I'll put everybody.
Or
No,
from.
you don't. We can hear me from yours.
Right, I can hear Eric.
I'm so
now.
Okay, what do you want me to say?
No?
Sweet. I'll take the night off.
You take all the nights off. I want to hear it.
It's because we can't get our text stuff right.
No, because we have to keep changing it because you keep dropping. That's the problem. If you stop bailing on us, we can get everything dialed in and not worry about it. I'm not calling you out or anything. I'm just saying I think that might be a reason.
Yeah, Eric, I still only hear you.
Oh, then maybe it's just my show today. All right. Let me try one last thing. I put everybody on channel 1.
Oh wait, I just heard John.
You heard John?
He's echoing.
Sweet.
John is echoing.
People love hearing me twice. Maybe 3 times.
Yeah. John and I are both echoing.
I say I hear all 3 of you, but everybody's echoing. Okay. All right, let's do this. Let's put you guys on 2. All right. All right, so I just put everybody on channel 2. So everybody's on channel 2 right now. Can you guys both talk?
Yeah.
Check
If
1, 2.
only there was a manual somewhere to let us know what was going on.
Check 1, 2.
What do all those numbers mean?
There we go.
We're both echoing still.
That sounds right. You good with that, Thomas?
Hold on. I think I'm still echoing.
What? You're still echoing? Say something so I can listen.
Who do you want to say something? I'm not going to say anything. I'm done playing your game.
Yeah, I'm super echoey.
Oh, God damn it. Thomas. Alright, so John's good. Oh, okay. Alright, John's good. Let's try that setting. Alright. Thomas, say something, Thomas.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Oh, that's very nice of Maxim.
There we go. Got it
But
that time.
why?
I don't know.
Makes
And
sense.
I'm getting like a lot of like background just.
I'm not echoing now.
That's what he just said.
I don't know where that I'm getting all the background noise from, but
We've all
don't
muted
worry
and it's
about
still there, right? Like if we all muted, is it still on the stream?
let me mute again.
Okay.
Thomas, mute for a second.
Mute what?
mute yourself in Skype. Are you muted? All right, John, mute. Yeah, unmute. Everybody unmute. Yeah, I don't know. It's everybody mute and still there, so I'm not gonna worry about it. Okay, we kicked this off. We're already 11 minutes in here. I got things to do. All right, where are we at? 167. You're listening to episode 167 of PHP Ugly, your Thursday feed of PHP goodness, pureness, and just downright happiness of
Eric.
being a developer.
Should we start recording?
We should probably start recording before we do intros. God damn it. Okay. Start your local recording. 3, 2, 1. Clap check. 3, 2, 1.
That was fun. Do it again. Do it again.
I can't ever do it again. You're listening to episode 167 of PHP Ugly, your Thursday night feed of PHP happiness, pureness, and just downright joyfulness of PHP programmer. I'm your host, Eric Van Johnson. With me, as
Good.
usual, Thomas Rideout.
Hello.
And
My
not
goal is
so
to
usual,
interrupt as much as possible.
only when his parole officer makes him attend, John Congdon.
That's your second parole officer joke of the day.
The first one went over really well, so I just figured I'd reach back in that bag. So
Double down.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
How's everybody doing?
The first one wasn't on me though, so it's okay.
Doing good.
Cool. I have done nothing all week but be sick. I am a terrible sick person. I don't know if it's getting old or what, but one of the benefits of working remote is you don't seem to get sick as often, especially when you don't have young kids. Like John, you're screwed. You got young kids. Oh, they're just petri dishes of germs and all sorts of crap. But yeah, one of the perks of working remote is you don't seem to get sick very often. I cannot seem to handle being sick because man, I was hurt bad.
It's easy to whine and cry when you're sick. I'm a babe too.
I mean, I save up all my whining and crying for when I am sick, so I can really use it to the best effect.
So I have very little coding stuff to talk about because, like I said, I haven't been doing much all week. So if you guys have some fillers, that would be great.
Always have fillers. What are you talking about? Isn't that what we do?
Well, yeah.
Hey,
I'm.
we had a meetup last night. Thomas, you don't want to talk.
That's it. Yeah. Go on. Meet up. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, go ahead. Your turn. We'll talk about meetup later.
No, don't pass it off. The meetup was very good. I actually pulled myself together to go to the meetup yesterday. That's like the first time I had left the house all week. And John did his PHP World talk preview of event sourcing, and it went over really well.
Yeah, I was happy with it.
Yeah.
I forgot one small section of my prepared speech. It wasn't critical to the overall presentation, so I felt way better than last month for sure.
So if
Prepared. I didn't do it.
If you're attending PHP World this month, like in a week,
2
right?
weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Well, I'm editing, so we'll just say next week.
In a couple days. You definitely want to get John's event sourcing on your schedule. It's a really good introduction to event sourcing.
Yeah, it's actually. So we're recording on October 10th. It's 2 weeks from today. Will be my event sourcing talk. That's the one on Thursday. The one on Wednesday will be the TD 101 talk.
Cool.
So, yeah, just come out for my talks and then leave, and you're good to go.
Yeah, all set.
Are you excited?
No,
Thomas?
it's gonna be good.
You excited to do some traveling, Thomas?
Does remind me I need to take my medicine.
Mm.
You know I hate traveling. Fortunately, I have a direct flight from Colorado Springs, which is going to be really nice. But then,
I don't know how everything is in a direct flight from Colorado Springs. It's like you're right in the middle of the country.
well, everything's a direct flight from Denver.
Mm.
But Colorado Springs, we have a very tiny little airport that Frontier flies out of, and they only fly out for the winter season.
Are we flying direct then? Did I hear you say we're flying direct?
Of course, we're flying direct. That's crazy talk. Last time we had a layover, somebody lost a laptop. Just saying. So we're not doing layovers anymore.
No, it's getting too expensive.
Actually, I'm pretty sure the last time we went to PHP World, somebody lost their headphones.
That was tech, wasn't it?
Okay, tech, but I don't know that.
It might have been tech. I don't know. It was World. I think it was World last year that you lost your. Oh no, it was.
No, that was
Longhorn. Lone Star. One of those.
Houston, the good people of Houston.
Yeah. Speaking of which, speaking of PHP World, I need you guys to bring me the latest in DiegoDev fashions. I'm still wearing my DiegoDev shirt from 4 years ago.
Oh man, I don't know if we have anything for you, Thomas. I have to see. Our supplies are for the more mature male is running a little low.
But you ordered 2 of them and used both of them?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's I know.
But we will bring some goodies.
It's noted for our next order.
Mm-hmm. We'll bring you some goodies, though.
Yeah, I was going through my previous clothing choices and realized, the last time I was at a conference, I had my Respect the Double Claw shirt and my DiegoDev shirts, and that was all I had for the entire conference.
Do you have either one of those now?
I have my DiegoDev one still. It's still in great shape, actually. But the Respect the Double Claw shirt did not make it through the washer as fortunately. It shrank about 5 sizes.
Do you wear the same size I wear, Thomas?
Yeah.
I will literally give you the shirt off my back. I'll give you one of the new T-shirts we have. I'll give you one of mine.
Oh, we'll figure it out. It's not a big.
That's how I roll, man. That's how I am with my friends.
I'll pack enough shirts in my bag just in case. We'll say that.
Okay.
You realize you go to a conference and you get like 50 shirts.
That's true, but you know what? They didn't ask my size at this conference. I don't know if they're gonna. You know, when you wear a triple XL, you're on the rare end of things.
Yeah.
No, you should have got an email after registering to fill out like a survey, including that.
Oh, maybe I did do that.
I don't know if I did that.
Plus you go to the vendor tables. They all have T-shirts.
Yeah, and this is a big conference, man.
What do? You just walk up to a vendor and say, "Hey, give me a shirt. I don't want to listen to your crappy sales pitch, but give me a shirt."
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Really? I never do that. I'm very self-conscious about that.
Well, I usually point behind them and then grab it and run.
We also go to plenty of conferences where we know what they're offering for the most part. Don't need to go through the sales pitch. We're like, yeah, I talked to you last time at the last conference. Can I have some of your stuff? No, sure.
Give me some
Take it.
swag.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm terrible at that. Terrible. Okay, what else we have? Let's move on. So we're all going to be at PHP World. If you're going to be at PHP World, make sure you come up and say hello. We like saying hello to people. And we'll have stickers and stickers. And I got to see what we have as far as letting your stuff go. But we'll
yeah, and if you need to find us, we'll be at the hotel bar.
Who will be?
My buddy.
Well, I'll be there.
Eric Barnes from Laravel News sent me like 100 Laravel News stickers. So I'm like Laravel News sticker rich. I need that thing. I need those like get value like Bitcoin, man. Because I'm like Laravel.
What, plunge in value as soon as you get them?
Yeah, I'll bring those with me as well. If anybody from Laravel News stickers, they'll be at PHP World. Well, I'll have everything. That's usually how I roll. Do they have like do they have the community sticker tables at World?
Probably.
I'm sure they will.
Easy way to pass these out.
Eric's like, I'll buy your friendship with stickers.
Oh man, I just need friends, man. Nobody wants to be my friend.
That isn't true.
It's hard. I'm telling you.
And I doubt it's true. I don't have any definitive proof.
Ask John who he went to the air show.
Yeah, you broke up there, but
Who'd you go to the air show with, John?
I got the gist. With a friend of mine, Spencer Pointkowski.
Oh my God, the betrayal!
And what really made it bad is I'm telling the story, we're talking, and then I'm like, oh yeah, and the week before I went to the Padres game with him. He's like, oh.
Yeah, not that I like baseball or anything. I mean, I can understand why I wasn't invited to that one.
And the week before that, we were going to play disc golf, but not making it.
Yeah, I get it. I can't even get the guy to be on a podcast with me on a regular basis. But I understand. I get it.
So I have a topic that I wanted to bring up in this podcast because for some reason it showed up in Force this week.
Uh-oh. I'm worried about this one.
He's talking about the impeachment, Inquisition.
If only I could. I'm actually talking about learning games. Learning how to code through video games. And we've seen a lot in the past about games that are supposed to teach kids how to code, but there was a real flood this week. So Ubisoft, who's famous for the Assassin's Creed games, released a free video game called Rabbids Coding. And you download their client, install it, and you get 26 levels using this sort of drag and drop case statements and if statements and everything, these conditionals, to beat the puzzles on each level. And it's very similar to Scratch, if you've ever used that.
Yeah, Yeah.
But then, at the same time, someone dropped the MySQL murder mystery. This is a MySQL database with starter instructions on how to select the first entry, and every entry tells you what the next step is to solve the murder mystery. And as you travel through it, you are learning how to write SQL statements and solving the murder in SQL City. Now, they have a starting point for people who are already experienced in SQL. You just sort of jump into the middle of the story and it catches you up on things. And then it starts to get into advanced topics. But I found out that this whole thing is based off of the command line murders, which is a game written in Bash, I believe it's Bash, where you have to solve the murder in Terminal City using all of the Bash instructions. So the SQL one is not particularly helpful for me. I'm pretty great at SQL, but I will definitely be solving the command line murders.
Have you looked into the SQL murder mystery at all? Like beyond what the story is?
Yeah, so if you look at the prompt for experienced users, it simply says a crime in 2018, and that it took place in SQL City. Start by retrieving corresponding crime scene report from the police department's database. So it starts you off with vague instructions. It doesn't give you the SQL that you would need to do. You're going to have to describe tables and understand what the structure of the database is before you can start doing anything. But it's working under the assumption that you're experienced. Now, if you're inexperienced, it starts off with a cheat sheet that tells you how to get to that point and how to start querying tables and figuring out what it is you need to write. So
I like that they have their last commit on the database was obscure the solution.
I like this idea of these command line games to teach you this kind of stuff. I mean,
there's nothing new. I mean, this has been around. Vim has a whole game that teaches you all the Vim commands, and it's a little you push a guy through the maze by doing all the Vim commands. So yeah, this stuff is awesome. I love this sort of.
Yeah, I really enjoy this, and I'm definitely going to be doing the command line murders. And I'm going to try and get my kids into the Rabbids one, the Rabbids coding, because it's not a simple, interface. It's definitely a full-fledged game interface from a modern company. And it has humor and cute characters and puzzles. It looks like it could be something helpful to teach my kids just the core concepts of what programming is and why we do it.
Do you need a Windows machine to play this?
Rabbids does need a Windows machine.
All right. Well,
It actually looks like it's built with Scratch.
It's just duplicating the Scratch interface.
Oh.
It's the same conceptual, the way it visualizes the flow of the code.
Uh-huh.
But it's 26 levels 32 levels, and a sandbox mode where you can build your own puzzles. And it's got objectives like vacuum up the mess and dump it in the dumpster. And I like it. I'm a fan. I think releasing this kind of stuff for free is definitely in the interest of the video game companies because it teaches kids to do the work that they're looking for people to do in the future.
Interesting.
Just realized part of my problem here is I forgot to hardwire my laptop.
That'll slow you down a bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm hearing you stutter like crazy.
And we just lost your audio.
That's all right. We don't need it.
You lost my audio.
No,
there you go.
we're fine. Another thing that we've been forgetting to mention that I've had on my list is that as this is October, it's Hacktoberfest.
Hacktoberfest.
If you want to get a T-shirt, I believe it's a T-shirt, then you got to go over to hacktoberfest.com, sign up for it, and participate.
You don't have to sign up for it. They take care of all that stuff for you. All you have to do is hit to open source project. I think you have to commit. You have to have 5 PRs. The PRs don't even have to be merged. They just can't be dismissed. You have to open up 5. I think it's 5. 5 PRs with open source project, and that I think you get a T-shirt.
You do have to sign up through their site with your GitHub account. That's how they manage that. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can actually sign up at the end of the month. So if you find yourself contributing this month and you're like, well, I want to sign up now, it'll honor whatever you do this month. So you sign up last minute and it'll take care of it. They're very liberal with that stuff.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an airplane thing for me.
I happen to submit a PR on October 3rd, and that's counting.
There you go. You know, I submitted a PR too. I don't remember when it was. I need to go back and look now. It was after Laravel 6 came out, so it might have been before October. But yeah, got to go look. I keep saying I'm going to do this. I'm going to get more involved with open source projects and contribute more, and I never do. I'm a horrible person. Horrible.
I get involved as I need something. Like, this is
me.
broken.
Yeah.
I'll fix it, and I'll contribute, but I'm not trying to find something new per se.
All right.
But
why do you have Thomas a bunch of Docker links in the Oktoberfest?
Oh, because I screwed up pasting stuff.
Wow, you really screwed up. There's a lot of. Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the weird things that happened last week was that Docker is basically said it's running out of money, and nobody can quite figure out why because they got a huge round of initial investment.
Because it's easy to spend money, man.
I guess.
Easy to spend it, hard to make it, hard to keep it.
True, and true. Like, where are they making their money? Docker Hub? Is that the main place?
Docker Hub partnerships with Microsoft and Red Hat. Support, paid support. Probably hosted services. So they've got a lot of, they have a Docker Enterprise. They have an Enterprise Solutions.
Yeah, I'm signing up for Hacktoberfest. You guys have moved on stories, but I'm just signing up for Hacktoberfest. Just so you know. But do I have a profile? Ah, it shows me my progress.
Good progress there, buddy. You haven't made any pull requests yet.
Hey, I haven't either. Be nice.
Hey, I'm gonna try to accomplish this year. I say that every year, and I never do. So this year I'm gonna try to give it a real solid effort.
Well, you better jump on it quick because we're going to be gone for a week. I guess you could do it at the conference, right?
And the month is like we're already almost 2 weeks into the month already. So yeah, buckle down, man.
The conference runs surprisingly late.
What do you mean?
I think it's always around this time.
Yeah.
I mean, because
late as in dates or late as in the time that they run.
Well, it gets out at 5:30, but then at 7 they do that game night, board night stuff, and then there's the
Yeah,
DC PHPs. I guess 5:30 is not too
yeah.
weird.
They always have stuff going on for out of towners who don't have anything better to do.
Yeah, but it gets out at 7.
Gets out at 7. What are you talking about?
The 25th anniversary celebration. I guess that's not really mandatory attendance.
Nothing's mandatory.
Nothing is mandatory.
Well, you know what I mean.
Obviously not. So we had a good meeting today. I'm going to move us on. Eric and
wasn't it a
had
great meeting?
Yeah, we had a new potential client come into our offices today, and we had a good turnout of developers show up to help, make the place look lively.
Look busy. Yeah.
So thank you to those developers for coming in and making us look important. But it was very very exciting as far as having a new, potential client work is always nice. And it seems like they're sold on us. I think we do a good job of selling ourselves if we get a chance to talk to people. Eric does anyway.
No.
All right. Well, that was a fun story. Next.
I thought they were going to go into more detail on that one. I didn't know.
Well, I start.
It's hard to go to detail.
I want to share, but then you get NDA signed. You're not allowed to really talk about what's going on yet. So, and we don't have anything. Like, there's not a contract in place where we're like excited to be working about the project and share it. So
it's just always
exciting.
fun. Honestly, yeah. It's fun to talk about our business model and what we do and why we do it and how much we enjoy doing it. I mean, that's what those meetings are. And I don't know. It's always good to rehash that because as many times as I tell the story, I'm so excited, like re-energized when I talk about it again.
The hard part is getting people to understand it as well. Okay. Our big thing around DiegoDev is you don't hire one person. Like, we charge per developer just because that's what people are used to paying for. But you may hire, quote unquote, one developer from us, but we have a team. So if we're working on a JavaScript task, we will put a JavaScript person on it, PHP task or Elasticsearch or whatever the specialty is. We probably have somebody to fill that gap versus hiring one person that you hope knows all these pieces and they really don't.
Right.
So anyway,
yeah, I wish I was fuller stacked than I am.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like you become full stack, and then that a manager or potential client then puts all the pressure on you to do everything, know everything. It's not fair, right? I mean, because you really do want to be good at something, and it's hard to be good at a full stack. It's just there's too many moving pieces, and things are evolving quickly. So, yeah. I mean,
I used to consider myself full stack. Like, I have just like you, I'm sure you have a concept of it. But then you see somebody specialized in JavaScript or specialized in ops or any of those other pieces, and you're like, oh yeah, I just scratched the surface of those things.
Right.
Like, I could take a time and figure it out, but you put somebody that knows what they're doing, and it's
it's that difference between knowing a language and being fluent in a language.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's that difference between being a PHP developer who uses a MySQL database and being a database administrator, right? I mean, it's just like you think you understand the database and you think you understand how to use it, but those damn database administrators are like a special breed.
And I think what's funny is in the PHP world, you don't know a lot of database administrators. I don't think there's a lot of people listening to this who would understand what a crazy type of person a DBA is, because it is iron-fisted control position, and they refuse to let up any control over their system. So if you want to add a column, you're looking at 2 weeks of meetings and proposals. It's awful. But the database is rock solid.
Yeah.
Yep. I've never actually worked with one. I know them through meetups or conferences, but you start talking to them and they really understand every optimization that's going on. And, like you're saying, you don't add columns willy-nilly or just anything. It's so much going into it, and I just don't know all those tweaks, all those specialties.
Yeah. You've got something and you show it to them and they say, that won't scale to 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, well, I didn't think about that. Like, of course you didn't fix it. Do you guys know what SHTF means?
SHTF. Can I guess? Shit
Yes.
happens to Fred? I don't know.
You're close.
Oh, really? That was
Yes.
your guess.
You got one word right.
Oh, okay. What is it?
Shit hits the fan.
Oh, duh. Should have known that one.
So this is a term that I run across recently. Apparently, it's the more politically correct term for people who are preppers.
Okay.
I was looking at you guys and losing electricity in California on a nightly basis for a couple weeks because of fire conditions. And here, where it just snowed today for the first time this season.
What?
Yeah.
You
And
had
it didn't
snow outside?
It didn't lightly snow like it usually does the first time. It blanketed. Denver, which is just north of me, went from 80 degrees yesterday at a high to 27 high today. It was a 63-degree dip in temperature.
No reason to be concerned about that. That's all natural environmental stuff. That's
Yes.
There's nothing happening to the Earth itself.
Isn't that 53 degrees? Is my math wrong again?
Maybe it went lower then. Maybe the high was lower because it made news. 64 degrees in less than 24 hours. It was highs of 79 and then down to 24 degrees. So, I mean, it's a dramatic swing.
Yeah, somebody doesn't know math. Probably me, but
I guess that's Denver Airport. Readings elsewhere in Denver hit 64 degrees in 24 hours. Either way, living here in Colorado, your perspective is a little bit different on what's going to happen if something goes wrong, or the idea that something can go wrong. I have a lot of military friends out here who are always talking about how ready they are for everything to blow up. And for me, I'm a programmer. So when everything blows up, I provide literally no useful skill to anybody. And I looked at my poor innocent children and realized I better have some kind of plan for myself in case anything like a good blizzard happens. So I've been reading some of this stuff, and a lot of it is this alarmist, crazy stuff about, systems collapsing in domino effects and how everything fails. And what none of it is about is how to develop a community that can support each other in case of emergency. Like, nobody ever says, hey, do you know your neighbors? You should hang out with them and talk with them. They're talking about which guns are the best guns and which knives are the best knives. And I'm like, yeah, but also...
That's why you want to talk to your neighbors. You want to find out what sort of guns they have.
Right. But...
I got some... go ahead.
Hold on.
Are you going somewhere with this?
I am going somewhere with this, but...
Okay, well, take your time.
What I found today was Collapse OS.
Okay.
It is a Linux kernel designed to run on the microchip that is available in essentially every kind of crappy piece of electronics you can find. It's designed to run on the oldest serial and PS2 interfaces. It's designed.
Shit on this show. I swear to God.
I was fascinated by this because the idea that you see stuff like games like Fallout or Metro. Do you see these depictions in movies of collapsed societies and some guy built a computer? But the realism of somebody building a computer is he'd be the only guy in the city to have a computer.
Well, building a computer wouldn't be the hard part. It's the networking the computers that would be challenging because there are computer parts all over the world now, right? I mean, you can easily pick up a computer and piece together a terminal, but getting it to do anything functional is a whole nother challenge.
But the parts that you'll find nowadays are highly sensitive to electromagnetic pulse or shock or any number of ways they can be damaged, and they'll become high-value items. This is taking stuff like a Sega Genesis or a Casio calculator and turning it into a functional Linux machine. So it's an interesting open source project. It's got full documentation on how to build it and how to.
I'm confused on why we're talking about this. I mean,
I don't know, but it does lead into a new hobby I'm looking to take up. I've been doing a bunch of research on aquaponics. Do you guys know what aquaponics are?
aquaponics?
Yeah, aquaponics. Yeah. So I've always been fascinated with closed source systems. I mean,
closed loop.
Closed loop systems. Like systems that are able to feed themselves, right? And that's what that's the whole idea behind aquaponics. It's a closed loop system where essentially you have a fish tank, and the fish do their fish business in the fish tank, and you pull that water out, and that water feeds plants, and the plants take the nutrients out of the water that the fish leave behind. It then filters the water, and the water goes back into the fish tank, and this becomes like a whole cycle. So you never have to clean the fish tank. The fish always have fresh, clean water, and you never have to water your plants. The plants are always being watered through this circulation of water coming out of the fish tank. And the only thing
the water it produces is clean too.
Right. That's the whole thing. Is that eventually filters back into the fish tank. So it's a closed loop system. And
but if you have dirty water, the plants will actually filter out heavy metals and chemicals in the water, and you can get clean water from dirty water by putting it into the system.
Right. That's correct. And I've always been fascinated by this, and I've always wanted to do it. And I have a very specific type of aquaponics system I want what's called a vertical aquaponics system because it takes up less physical space. So your plants actually end up in like these tubes.
Is this about pot?
And no, it's about just growing my own food, but like doing it in the system. And I looked online, and it's actually surprisingly affordable to do this. So that's going to be my new thing. While you're trying to find an old Casio calculator to put Linux on, I'm gonna be eating a salad because I'm gonna have my aquaponic system.
I was gonna say, do you not see how clearly this ties in with the conversation about shit hit the fan that we were just having?
Well, that's why I pulled it all together for you. That's
Thank you.
That's my professionalism, man. You're welcome. You're welcome.
You can use koi and goldfish. If the fish in the system need not be edible.
Well, that's the thing is, a lot of people use koi and a lot of people use goldfish because they're kind of easy to maintain, and they have a better tolerance for temperature fluctuation in the water. But for the hardcore people, you can actually breed edible fish. So you can have fish in there that that are breeding, and if you want to eat fish, you get some of your fish out, and then you pick some salad, and you have a little fish and salad thing going on. So yeah, it's there's all these different stages, and of course, you know, you get on YouTube and you see some of these really complex, but yeah, for the most, like, I'm not really that focused on the edible fish parts. I'll probably just do koi or goldfish, and because I mean goldfish are cheap, so you just put a bunch of goldfish in there and let them live and be happy. But I do kind of want to make it so that the like some of these systems, you don't even see the fish. They just put the fish in a barrel, and the fish just live a life inside this barrel, and you never see them. I kind of want to make mine part of, like, if you walk in my backyard, you say, "Hey, you've got a bunch of fish back here." You know, like, you can actually appreciate it a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm working through in my head is, I want to make it something that people would be interested to walk up to and say, "Hey, what do you got going on here? I see fish down here. I see, you know,
Uh,
cabbages and stuff growing."
if you're gonna do it in your backyard like that, make it a feature. Make it a koi pond. Way
Right.
better than goldfish.
That's what I'm thinking. But I don't want it so big that it's a koi pond. And I don't think I have the room for a koi pond. And I don't want to spend that sort of money either.
You definitely have enough room for a koi pond. Both my neighbors across the street have koi ponds in their backyard.
Yeah. Koi
Yeah.
ponds are expensive though. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But that's my new thing. I'm gonna do that. I think I'm gonna start small and see how well it works out, and then you can get everything on Amazon, so it's cool. Aquaponics. That's my new. That's my new non-computer thing that I'm going to do. And my wife was actually very pleased because usually my little hobbies are expensive. And so when she when she saw like how much I'd be spending, she's like, "Yeah, no, I can get behind this one." And you know, it'd be nice to have like cucumbers. I can just go back and get cucumbers and mints and spices and stuff, and yeah, some
Did you
chilies.
tell her how many Raspberry Pis you're going to need to power the thing?
Well, yeah, that was another thing. Yeah. So the one guy had a little Raspberry Pi that was like automatically feeding his fish. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I need that. That's a must have.
See, you can get away from computers, but you can't get too far away from computers.
Nah, probably not. Yeah, I'm sure I'll figure out a way to geek it out. You know, I need to always watch like the temperature and some sort of pH in the water.
Don't pee in the water. That's bad for the fish.
What's wrong with you?
Do you want to cover? You want to talk inertia? Because I think after that, I'm gonna just sit on some real Laravel talk.
Well, I'm glad we're going to actually talk about development stuff today. That's nice. Yeah, talk about inertia. Like I said, I was sick. I was sick this week, but I managed to muscle up enough energy to check something out. You might remember when I got back from Laracon, I was so really excited about Livewire, um, because you know
I vaguely recall that.
I'm not a big JavaScript guy, right? And so having that sort of dynamic sort of JavaScript functionality without having to do a lot of JavaScript is definitely a goal of mine. But also at that same Laracon, everybody was talking about this inertia. And so I finally got around to look at it, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. So it's not exactly the same thing as Livewire, because Livewire is still very much I'm a back-end developer. I'm gonna just do, you know, these little dynamic components, like, you know, that. But the what Inertia does, it's a pretty slick project. So Inertia actually sits between a back end and front end, and there's a couple of adapters and variations. I think right now it supports Laravel, Ruby on Rails in the back end, Vue.js, React, and there might be something else on the front end. And it kind of sits between these two. It acts as a broker, and basically what it's really good at is getting data from the back end to your front end component. And so Inertia allows you to write your controllers in Laravel just kind of the way you would normally write it, uh, you have this inertia kind of helper or method you call that then calls your views. So now all your pages, instead of blade templates, all your pages become view components. But passing data to them from the back end becomes very simple. And passing data back to the back end from the front end is also just as simple. So I've been checking out Inertia, and I'm liking what I'm doing. Again, I'm not a big JavaScript guy. I like Vue. I kind of understand it, but it's one of those things like if I'm not always coding in it, I really start to suck at it. And Vue's changing just enough where like today I had to pull my JavaScript guy aside and say, "Hey, listen, what am I doing wrong here? Because this seems like I have everything set up correct." And it was like some minor little tweaks that we needed to make. But I like these projects like Inertia because they're really making that barrier of moving data around from back end to front end and front end to back end so much easier. Um, I I like this. I think I'm actually starting to there's an application that I've been wanting to build for a long time, and I think I have enough to go on with Inertia that I can actually do it with Inertia. It's pretty slick.
Yeah, this does seem a little slicker than the stuff I've used in the past. I mean, I spent months working with React, and if you asked me to start a React project now, I would just quit. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Oh yeah,
It falls out of my mind so fast if I don't
that's
really
that's
use it on the
that's
daily.
me. That's how I am with all JavaScript. I mean, like I said, Vue is probably I've been able to retain the most of with Vue, but still, it's like if I'm not doing it like every day or every week at least, I'm an idiot. Like I can't even start a Vue project. If I'm like, okay, I don't know. I know I need a Vue file, and I'm horrible at it. I've got to get better at it because everything's going that way. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no stopping. All right, so what did you want to talk about with Laravel?
Well, I want to start with the good news.
Okay.
Taylor tweeted out yesterday that he is going to be starting a mini series on the Laravel snippets, where he shares his thoughts on building projects, marketing motivation, building an audience, and more. But in that same tweet, he also said, in the last 5 years, I've sold $10 million worth of software. And I was
Okay.
just stunned.
Why would that stun you?
I wasn't thinking 10 million. I was thinking like 3 million, maybe. But 10 million, that's a hell of a lot of money for one guy.
Well, but I mean, he didn't say he had 10 million.
No, but if you look at his structure for the services he sells, a lot of it is self-hosting and, minimal uh, minimal infrastructure investment. So, I mean, I would bet you he has a lot of that money still. I think the stuff that's heaviest would be the new cloud stuff that he's doing, and then like Envoy, I think it is. But don't forget that he also sells the admin backend that he wrote and several other components that are just components that are hosted on GitHub that he just sends you. And that stuff's pure profit.
Well, but he has a company now. He has employees. He has.
Yeah, and I did see a breakdown from the marketing team that he hired to create the new Laravel site and branding effort. And so I'm interested in his opinion of that whole experience, which he'll be giving in these Laravel snippet podcasts. But I think that's great news for Taylor.
Okay.
I'm happy to hear that.
Okay. So you don't have an issue. Okay. So that wasn't the bad news. That's so the good news.
That was the good news.
Okay.
I'm really upset about Laravel 6.2.
Okay. Why? What's up with Laravel 6.2?
So the reason that Semver works so well, especially in a framework environment, is that the things that get upgraded get version number upgrades, and the things that don't. The only reason that Composer would encounter a backwards breaking change is if you misconfigure Composer to allow it to happen. So as long as you're following Semver, you can have packages that are valid for 20 years because the package they rely on only gets bug fixes, security fixes, and stuff that doesn't break backwards compatibility. So you get these minor and patch revisions.
Right.
That was the big...
You already broke Semver? Is that what you're saying?
That was the big goal with the Laravel framework moving to 6, was that it would be Semver. Unfortunately, when he released 6.2 this week, I noticed that every sub-package that is used to build out the framework, which is generally called Illuminate, all of the Illuminate packages were updated and tagged to be 6.2 as well. And I thought, well, maybe he literally did touch every one of these libraries that's necessary, and so he decided to bump the version on all of them. But I looked into it, and there's plenty of libraries in Illuminate that did not get any change, and in fact have 5 different tags on the same commit ID.
So basically, if you had it in your Composer to stop at 5, whatever, it didn't upgrade it.
So the issue with this is not right now. 6.2 isn't going to break anything. It's not going to give anybody some big headaches because everybody's expecting it's still on the 6 major revision, which means it's still going to be backwards compatible. But when he does make a breaking change somewhere, and if he keeps following this trend, then it means that he's going to tag every package as broken now. And that completely defeats the purpose of going to Semver. I have packages that are for CAPTCHAs, and they just require Illuminate support. And as long as Illuminate support is the same major revision, then you're good. And looking back all the way to 5.0, Illuminate support has technically been backwards compatible the entire time. But now that he's gone to Semver, if he keeps doing this, renumbering packages that haven't changed, he's actually going to make the problem worse because he's going to have more frequent major revision number changes. So, I mean, does that make sense to you guys? Is that these support libraries that everyone uses, they don't require Laravel, they require Illuminate support, or Illuminate database, or Illuminate translations.
There's no need to keep every component on the same version.
Right. So if you look at the way that Symfony is versioned right now, they're at 4.3.5, but debug is at 4.0, polyfill is at 1.0, file system and Finder are at 3.4 or 4.0. They're compatible with each other. You know, Twig is at 3.2 or 2.8. You know, those supporting old revisions is important because if they're not backwards compatible broken, then you don't need to refactor every single library that you require. And at this point, I think it's like 110 or something like that. And this is a problem that Eric and I both encountered when we were upgrading to Laravel 6, which was we had abandoned packages that didn't have any conflicts except for they required 5 point something. And so I've got 3 projects that were abandoned that I've had to fork just so I can maintain them, so I can keep them 6 compatible. And the only difference is the Composer JSON change. So I really, really hope that this gets addressed. It's not something you can do a pull request for. You just have to like talk to Taylor and say like, hey, you can't reversion stuff that didn't change.
Well, you'll have a chance to talk to him in 2 weeks. Thomas. He'll be at World, so you can go hunt him down and say, Taylor, I got a question for you.
Do you think he'll recognize me though, and just start running?
I would say it depends on if he starts running or not. That would be.
Actually, what you were just talking about as far as an unmaintained package that's out there and bringing it in-house to make your changes, that's actually the pull request that was accepted October 3rd. I made a pull request against this library back in May, and then it wasn't critical to the application, so we didn't hit that bug very often. Found another issue with it, opened a second pull request, realized they didn't accept the one from May. So I'm like, all right, I guess it's dead. Forked it, brought it in, changed all my composer to hit the new internal version of it. And a day later, he accepted both pull requests. Like, why all of a sudden? What changed? So then I had to take the time to set all of the composer entries back to the other version. And of course, screwed up somewhere and had to open the same pull request like 3 times to fix that. Fun story. Okay, move on.
No, it's a constant problem, and the idea of Semver is to fix that issue, and it's worse. So that was a big headache for me, and I spent quite a bit of time in Slack explaining to people why this was actually a worse problem than it was before, and not just a slight inconvenience. Because when he does go to 7, which should be sooner than it used to be, everything's going to break. So hopefully someone can give him a quick lesson on Semver. Somebody who's not me. You ready for some doom and gloom to close us out?
Oh, hey, close this out, man. That works for me. I'll give you a little doom and gloom slide.
You've got me all set up there.
Oh, yeah. Lay it on us.
There has been a major password leak from some of the highest levels in computing history. I'm not sure if you guys saw this at all, but it turns out that Stephen Bourne of the Bourne Alistair Ritchie was DMAC. So somebody working at the Unix Heritage Society realized that these original authors of the Unix variant of BSD, the free version of BSD, when they initially released it on their mailing lists, they had user accounts created for themselves, and the passwords were hashed in Descript, salted with is limited to 8 characters, salted with 12 bits of entropy. And we're talking in the 70s. These guys were working. So somebody decided on the Unix Heritage Society mailing list that they were going to decrypt these pioneers' passwords and get some insight into what they were thinking. And a lot of people's passwords were really terrible. It was either their own name or their wife's name or their favorite animal, their favorite opening chess move. So I like seeing these ancient stories uncovered. This goes back to 1979, and the algorithm that was used was deprecated over 20 years ago. But it is it's always fun for me to look at the intricacies of the lives of these people who created the internet, who created computing as we know it nowadays, and how security has changed as well. I mean, in the days that they wrote this, they were using the strongest password hashing algorithm they could use. And now there's a website that just offers to crack any Descript password for $100. You just paste it in and pay with Bitcoin. So that's my doom and gloom. Horrendous, horrible leak of passwords on the highest levels.
From 30 years ago or whatever.
I was to say, very old
40.
passwords, something like that.
40 years ago.
Yep.
It's more interesting that they had accounts on machines they didn't have control over, I'm assuming, so they technically had remote exploits.
This was the initial source tree for when they released Unix. As the basis for BSD, or BSD is the basis for Unix. So this was ancient history in commit logs from 30 years ago, 40 years ago. God, that's amazing. Yeah, so 40 years of history still stored and still out there to view. The article on it is in Ars Technica, and I think it's wonderful.
You would, Thomas. You would think that.
This is my kind of thing.
All right. Well, you promised me to wrap it up after that. Are we done?
I think we're done. We have to say we're not going to be recording next week in preparation for our trip to PHP World.
What? Or not? Okay.
I think Eric and I had decided that last week.
Okay.
And thank you to our Patreons.
But we're not leaving for 5 days after that. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to complain.
I think you of all people should not be complaining about it, John.
I'm not.
He already had it in his calendar for the first time ever. He's heartbroken.
John,
thank you to our Patreons.
If you really want to record, we can record next week, and I'll take up the editing duties to make sure it gets done before the conference.
Oh, is that the reason we're not recording? That makes sense.
Yeah. That would be the reason.
That makes sense.
Okay. All right. As long as you're sure. Okay.
I do have timeliness issues.
Please proceed.
Huge thank you to all of our Patreons. I would love if you could hit us on Twitter and let us know that you're going to be at PHP World or be in the area. We'd love to hear from you and hang out at some point.
Thomas is going to get a hug, so you'll get a hug from Thomas.
I do hugs. Eric does high fives.
I grab hugs.
John shuffles in the corner.
I don't know where that came from. Don't know where that came from.
All right, that's it. I think we're wrapping up.
You did say something about my parole officer, right?
I did. All right, that's it. What was this? 167 is in the can. I'm your host, Eric Van Johnson.
I'm John Congdon.
I'm Tom Rideout.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
God, that was a forced show.
That was a great show.
With what, John?
Why'd you share that screenshot? Just for fun?
I just wanted to see what the button did.
Oh, what button?
There's a little snapshot button.
All right, I'm stopping recording.
Snapshot button. I don't know why it's there. I don't know why would you use that, but it's there. Can we stop recording? All right, I'll stop recording. All right.
So I was talking to... All right.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Patreon supporters. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
See you in a couple weeks in October, November. We'll see you in November. Peace.